The sun rises over a rugged, mist-shrouded valley, casting eerie shadows as a band of determined humans emerges from the gaping mouth of a weathered limestone cavern. Their eyes are sharp, scanning the landscape for danger and sustenance alike. These ancient souls have no luxury of rest. Each dawn heralds a battle with the elements and the ever-present question, will they live to see another night? What truly occupied the restless minds and nimble fingers of these Paleolithic wanderers? Forget those worn-out images of brutish cavemen yanking women by the hair or mindlessly clubbing woolly beasts. Their world was anything but simple. So, how did these resilient folk pass their fleeting hours in a realm where survival was as constant as the breath in their lungs? When we speak of these ancient tribes, we're conjuring up the lives of people who roamed the earth during the Paleolithic era, stretching from about 2.6 million years ago to nearly 12,000 years ago. This immense chapter of history, covering more than 99% of our time as a species, unfolded in a world without cities, farming, or even a single scrap of written language. Yet, this vast expanse of time was anything but static. It was an age of mind-bending innovations in tool-making, social bonds, and even artistic sparks that still echo in the darkness of ancient caves. Our knowledge of these dawn dwellers emerges from multiple strands of evidence. Archaeological sites, cradle stone tools, charred hearths, gnawed bones, and, now and then, the ghostly remains of woven baskets or wooden weapons, long lost to the elements. Cave murals and small portable sculptures reveal tantalizing hints of a rich symbolic life. Comparisons with recent hunter-gatherer communities help fill in the blanks, though caution is essential, for time has a way of weaving and unraveling traditions beyond easy measure. The Paleolithic was no uniform world. It morphed and shifted across continents and millennia. Early Homo ergaster bands stalking antelope on African plains 2 million years ago lived lives vastly different from the artists sketching dreams onto the walls of southern Europe 20,000 years back. Of all the factors that molded daily lives, climate reigned supreme. During the glacial ages, when Europe and Asia lay smothered under sheets of ice, survival demanded cunning strategies unlike those in temperate lands. Those dwelling by ocean shores or winding rivers grew deft in fishing, while groups in dense forests or sweeping savannas adapted to the abundance and hazards of their own domains. Yet, across all these variations, one thread unites them: the life of hunter, gatherers, merging the thrill of the hunt with the patience of the gatherer. Now, let's rewind time's clock and slip into the sinews of their days, their seasons, their endless quest for life itself. A Paleolithic day was woven from the sun's bright arc. Without flickering bulbs or the tick of artificial time, these ancestors of ours moved to the gentle pull of light and shadow, attuned to the earth's seasonal breath. Daybreak usually found them stirring the embers of last night's fire. Evidence from ancient camps like the windswept shelters of Valcroze in France, dating back some 380,000 years, shows carefully tended hearths lifelines of warmth, light, and safety from creatures lurking in the night. Igniting a fire from scratch was no easy task. Most bands cleverly nursed glowing embers through the dark hours, feeding them with slow-burning materials. Mornings crackled with the urgency of survival. The band would pause to read the landscape. Was the larder empty? Were spear tips worn to nubs? Did the scent of prey ride the breeze? Water was the first chore fetched from springs or streams in containers fashioned from animal bladders, woven fibers, or the earliest forms of pottery. These early humans didn't live by a clock, but by a dance of immediate tasks and far-sighted plans. Sites like the marshy plains of Esharbenot Yaakov in modern Israel, dating back nearly 800,000 years, reveal astonishing knowledge of plant cycles, evidence of a mind that could peer into the future and lay careful plans for lean times. As daylight grew stronger, so too did their resolve. The day's labors shifted with the seasons and the urgency of the moment, yet one need overshadowed them all: food. Often, adult males would track and hunt larger game, while women scoured the forests for edible plants and smaller creatures. But these lines were blurred more than we might imagine. Bones and hearths whisper that gender roles could be as fluid as the rivers they relied on, each soul adapting as the earth demanded. By midday, the air grew heavy with heat, or, in colder times, the relentless bite of the wind, but life never paused. The sun at its zenith marked a pause only to catch a breath to sharpen tools on ancient stones, to strip sinew and bone from fresh kills, or to gather strength for the next push. If the hunters returned victorious, their burden was the day's prize, slabs of raw muscle, thick with promise. Gatherers, meanwhile, arrived with woven baskets brimming with leafy greens and bright berries, the forest's gifts. As daylight melted away, the band would gather in a circle, the flicker of firelight painting ghostly shapes on their weathered faces. Evening was for stories, whispered legends and plans for tomorrow's chase. Above all, securing food was their unwavering obsession, the heartbeat of Paleolithic life. To bring down a giant elk or a towering bison demanded skill, daring, and the delicate dance of cooperation. These ancient warriors may have begun as cunning scavengers, snatching marrow from the leftovers of beasts far mightier than themselves. Yet by 500,000 years ago, in the misty lowlands of today's Boxgrove, England, we find the proof of ambition, a horse's shoulder blade, punctured clean by a stone-tipped spear. No scavenging here, only cold, deliberate hunt. In those earliest hunts, rough hand axes and wooden spears did the job, wielded with brute force and primal precision. But time never stood still for long. By 400,000 years ago, at the site of Schöning in Germany, these patient artisans had crafted sleek wooden javelins, balanced to soar through the air like deadly birds of prey. The arrival of the spear thrower some 30,000 years ago turned the game into something fierce and far-reaching. And by 20,000 years back, the bow and arrow joined the hunt's chorus in some corners of the world. Not every day ended in triumph. Often, the forest offered only fleeting shadows, and so the gatherer's work became the steady hand of survival. Archaeological traces in ancient teeth reveal a rainbow of plants, starchy tubers, plump berries, nutty kernels, and leafy greens, with even a few medicinal treasures tucked among them. To master this bounty demanded keen eyes and endless patience, knowing when roots swelled with promise, which leaves would poison rather than nourish. These were lessons etched in the stories passed down across countless seasons. The site at Coaster in Illinois, dating back some 9,000 years, shows this adaptability in action: fish hooks and nets of bone, hinting at a diet plucked straight from shimmering waters. The earth's breath set the rhythm of the harvest. Spring teased with eggs and tender shoots, while summer ripened into berry-laden feasts. Autumn brought nuts, and the race to stock winter larders, for in the dark season, every bite counted. Though storage was a constant struggle, ingenuity kept hunger at bay. Some groups learned to slice and dry meat into chewy strips of early jerky, while others dug storage pits to cool their bounty beneath the frozen ground. In icy lands, winter itself became a cold pantry. Remarkably, these ancient diets were far richer and more varied than those of the first farmers who followed. Their bones tell tales of a balanced feast, strong and seldom lacking the nutrients that would plague the plow-bound societies of later ages. Perhaps the most transformative secret they mastered was fire's power to cook. Its earliest use for cooking may reach back hundreds of thousands of years, if not more, a crackling force that softened roots, sweetened tubers, and stripped poisons from stubborn plants. Around the flames, Paleolithic bands found not just warmth, but the secret to unlocking calories and taming wild foods. Equally crucial was the endless grind of tool-making. Life in the Paleolithic was a ceaseless cycle of napping, flaking, and chipping, no idle pastime, but an urgent need. A deft flint napper could peel razor edges from stone in minutes, while more intricate designs took hours, each flake carefully chosen and each curve coaxed from the rock's hidden heart. Stone was only the start. As far back as 1.76 million years ago, the Acheulean hand axe was a triumph of symmetry and purpose, sculpted from stone's cold flesh. The Middle Paleolithic saw the birth of the Levallois technique, a dance of geometry that offered better control over size and shape. Then, As the Upper Paleolithic dawned some 50,000 years ago, the tool chest exploded into a kaleidoscope of shapes. Engraving burins, hide, scraping blades, bone-piercing awls, and sleek projectile tips built to fell the fleetest prey. Such tools weren't mere experiments. They were testament to minds as sharp as the stones they shaped, blending skill with an intimate understanding of material. Beyond stone, wood was a constant companion, its presence ephemeral in the record, but vital in their hands. From Clacton-on-Sea comes a rare wooden spear tip, shaped with care to match the wood's living grain. Bone, antler, and ivory joined the Paleolithic toolkit as the world edged closer to modern times. These were not just the bones of the hunt, but raw potential sculpted into fishhooks that glinted in dark waters, needles that stitched hides into warm cloaks, barbed harpoons for underwater prey, and ornaments that shimmered with dreams of beauty or power. Antler held a prized place in these ancient toolkits, prized for its tough yet supple nature, perfect for crafting implements that could weather both time and teeth. Food wasn't just hunted. It was transformed with an array of tools, grinding stones, reduced seeds to flowery promise, while pounding tools tamed stubborn roots. Cutting implements, gleaming from endless flaking, turned butchery into an art. Experiments by modern flint knappers have shown that even elephantine feasts could be carved with stone edges, though it was no quick meal prep, more a battle of stamina than brute strength. Containers were as crucial as blades. Early humans pressed natural forms, gourds, shells, animal bladders into service long before pottery's gentle curves took shape. By the Upper Paleolithic, the record hints at nimble fingers weaving baskets and sewing animal hides into bulging bags. In distant China, the earliest pots took form some 20,000 years ago, fragile ceramics that cradled the first soups of memory. As the seasons turned icy, clothing was more than fashion. It was survival stitched into every seam. Hides were scraped and cleaned with stone-edged scrapers, then shaped by bone awls and stitched tight with sinew threads. Yet where did these crafty survivors truly live? The caveman stereotype only captures part of the story. True, caves offered sanctuary. Famous sites like the flickering depths of Lascaux or Alamera still echo with ancient whispers, but caves were often temporary havens, not permanent homes. Their safety was a passing luxury, and the real work of shelter took shape wherever the world demanded. At Terre Verde in France, archaeologists uncovered the faint footprints of oval huts stretching up to 15 meters long, their bones of wood and skin tied together in quiet determination. In the frozen steppes of Measure, Ukraine, 15,000 years ago, clever architects used mammoth bones to craft sturdy rings of ivory and hope. These homes were more than walls against the cold. They pulsed with life. A central hearth to anchor the night, sleeping spaces nestled close, tool-making corners, and food stations circling like planets around a sun. But home life wasn't static. Fires needed constant nursing to keep the darkness at bay. Wind and rain battered hides until repairs were no longer an option but a duty. Archaeologists have even unearthed ancient refuse heaps, the first dump sites, banishing waste from the living heart of the camp. Children, too, were woven into this tapestry. No tidy age brackets here. Toddlers watched spear tips being shaped and learned to weave stories into baskets. Hygiene leaves few fingerprints in the archaeological record, but studies of modern hunter-gatherers suggest daily cleansing fibrous twigs, scouring teeth, brisk plunges into icy rivers or warm springs to scrub away the day's sweat. And when sickness came, the Paleolithic didn't abandon its own. Skeletons with long-healed injuries, twisted spines, and ancient breaks speak of communities that carried the burden of the wounded, turning compassion into another form of survival. Despite modern cliches of crude grunting brutes, these people forged lives rich in nuance and connection. The band was their heart, 20 to 30 souls bound by blood and trust. Yet they weren't alone. Traces of obsidian and seashells far from any coast tell of trade routes stretching like invisible threads across continents. At the hearth, stories were currency, but so was food. Sharing was the glue that bound them, creating debts of honor and favors paid in roasted haunches. At sites like Doni Vestige, 29,000 years ago, massive hearths suggest feasts that turned cold nights into celebrations, forging bonds stronger than the spear shafts they shared. Art was the breath of their spirits. Ochre-streaked stones at Dragon's Den Cave in South Africa, dating back almost 100,000 years, speak of beauty woven into daily life. By the Upper Paleolithic, the walls of caves pulsed with images of life and myth, small figurines cradled in calloused palms, and music, the fleeting song of bone flutes found in German caves, carefully reassembled to sing once more. The rhythms of drums made from stretched skins, hollow logs echoing the earth's beat, spoke of gatherings, and perhaps something deeper, a ritual language lost to time but felt still in the pulse of modern hearts. Medicine, too, left ghostly traces, plants with healing powers ground into toothy calculus, hints of a shaman's touch in the hybrid figures that danced across cave walls. Conflict lurked at the edges, but it was no constant drumbeat. Scattered bones tell of violence, yes, but these were exceptions, not the rule. For most of the Paleolithic, resources outweighed rivalry, allowing bands to thrive without the bitter claws of war. In the grand story of our species, these ancient wanderers were the masters of adaptation. They met the ice and fire of shifting climates, spread across continents, and laid the foundations for every dream that would follow. In their laughter around the fire, and the echo of their flint against stone, we find not just our past, but the very shape of what it means to be human. What can these ancient lives, flickering in the long shadow of history, truly teach us? First and foremost, the Paleolithic people were not mere survivors, but skilled architects of their world. Far from helpless drifters, they shaped the very ground beneath their feet, hunting selectively, tending plant stands, and even wielding fire like a brush on the land's canvas. In Australia, charred soil layers reveal the fiery wisdom of Aboriginal ancestors 65,000 years ago, burning carefully to sculpt diverse mosaics of life. Second, these early wanderers wore knowledge like a second skin. In a single lifetime, they mastered a dizzying catalog of plants, animals, rocks, and shifting weather moods. Every hunter, every gatherer was an ecologist, a forager, a stone shaper, and a diplomat of the band, a kaleidoscope of skills that dwarfs our modern world of narrow lanes and specialized minds. Third, those deceptively simple tools were not rough drafts of modern convenience, but finely tuned answers to life's relentless demands. Generations of trial and error, of chipped flint and sweat-polished handles, shaped implements that worked in harmony with nature's stubborn edges. The blueprints for so many of our modern gadgets can trace their roots back to the crack of stone against bone in the Paleolithic dawn. Yet perhaps their greatest gift to us lies not in the edge of a spear, but in the firelight of the mind, in the birth of symbol, of art, of culture. It was here that the seed of humanity truly took root. Abstract thoughts and shared meanings that rose from the flicker of torches on cave walls to the pulse of painted drums. The Paleolithic was no fumbling prologue to civilization. It was a masterclass in balance, a time when humans danced between the hunger of the day and the hope of tomorrow, living within nature's bounds, yet never tamed by them. For over 99% of our story, this dance fed bodies and souls alike, a testament to harmony we might well remember in our age of excess. So what did these dawn dwellers do from sunrise to moonrise? They honed tools that sang in the hand. They scoured forest and river for life's fleeting gifts. They wove shelters that laughed at winter's howl. They sang and danced in flickering circles, teaching their children not just to live, but to see the world's quiet magic. They forged alliances with those beyond the horizon, their voices carried in trade goods and shared tales. And always, they turned crisis into opportunity, weaving mobility and creativity, into a cloak of resilience. When we peer at the scattered bones and buried hearths of their world, we must set aside the image of shuffling brutes. Instead, we find innovators who saw potential in every scrap of flint, every river's curve. We see the first architects of the human spirit, artisans of survival, poets of the hunt, and visionaries of shared dreams. Their echoes shape the path we now tread. So, next time you picture a caveman, let that image shift. See not the shaggy brute in furs, but the deft artisan who coaxed music from bone flutes and taught children to read the sky. See the botanist who tasted every leaf, the strategist who read every hoofprint. See the artist whose lines on stone still dance in our blood. All these threads wove together in one soul, a remarkable, adaptable human. A testament to the power of curiosity, cooperation, and the unbreakable will to live and to thrive in a world both cruel and beautiful.